Okay, this is going to be a short video on the Lorex security system. It'll be the third video in the series that I've made. I had recently gotten a person that had commented on one of my videos asking when I was going to do a follow-up. I wanted to wait at least 6 to 12 months before I did some kind of a follow-up video. I think it's important for people that are watching these videos to be able to gauge how well these cameras work under different circumstances and during the length of time that I've been using them. But I decided I'd come out with a third video. I'm sure there will probably be 4. Maybe when we get to the winter here in Minnesota with the extreme winters that we have in the winter, I'll create a 4th video. This one, it's summertime. I installed the cameras on around February 7th, and right now it's June 17th or 18th, I believe. Yes, June 18th. Just to let you know, the security cameras are still working. They're working great. I've noticed that there are a few quirks, some strange things. In order to get the settings, there's not a lot of settings to be. I think there's only 4 settings for a TV or a monitor, different resolution settings, and there seems to be only 2 that work with my TV, and one of them works the best, even though it does cut off some of the edges because of the having all 4 cameras displayed. It kind of cuts off a little bit of the edge, which I'm okay with. It's not a lot. Sometimes there's an issue with the cameras going offline. This has happened maybe about a half a dozen times since I've had the camera system. I happen to believe that this happens when remotely viewing the cameras. I have it set up so that if there's motion detected down in my basement, it will take a couple of snapshots, email them to my wife at work at night. It's set up so that it only does this from like 10:30 at night till 7 in the morning or 6:30 in the morning. So if there's any movement down in the basement, it'll take some snapshots and email them to her, and then she can tunnel in remotely and view the cameras if she wants to. And I've done this with tablets next to the bed. In my office with my desktop computer, I have gone ahead and set that up so I can sometimes, when I'm checking my emails or I'm watching some YouTube videos or something, that I can keep track of my son running around the yard or in the pool. The main reason why we got this security camera system was so that we could keep an eye on my son, and not as much as a security type thing. I've already got a security system that I've set up with smart things, so that if the front door or the back door is opened, or if there's motion down the basement, it'll alert me upstairs. If I'm sleeping in my bedroom, it'll turn on my bedroom light, and it'll announce to me which sensor has gone off. And I think that's effective enough for us. These security cameras are mostly just to keep an eye on my son. Sometimes we're watching TV or my wife's reading a book and my son wants to swim in the pool. Sometimes it gets quiet. Instead of having to get up and walk all the way to the other end of the house and look out the window to make sure that everything's all right, we can just look at the TV and see that everything's all right. I've noticed that if we're watching TV, it's kind of a hassle in order to switch to the security camera systems. So I have installed a monitor above our entertainment center, above the TV set, that we can turn on, and we can turn it on to just the pool camera and be able to see what's going on. I have had this system, it's been almost 6 months now, and I'm impressed with it. The quality's been really good. We've had some severe weather recently in the past, where we ended up with some really high winds, and you could see that the cameras kind of move back and forth with the wind hitting the tower. But I made special mounts that the cameras can mount to, and then the mounts can mount to the tower that has a shield over top of it to help protect the cameras too, which is, I think, important because the manual says that they want you to install these under some kind of cover. So I'm guessing any place like underneath an overhang of your house would probably be a good area. I know that we have had some hail. Wasn't extremely large hail, but I think those shields may have helped protect that to some kind of degree. Again, I think I mentioned in one of my past videos that I installed a security camera in my basement because I've been doing some work in my basement, and some of the ground is actually exposed, and we end up with a lot of water in the basement, and I want to make sure that the sub pump is pumping all the water out correctly, that we don't end up with 1.5 feet of water down the basement. And in the past, what I would have to do is I would have to walk all the way down to the basement and peer from the top of the steps down to the basement floor to see if we had water down there. Now, of course, I could just look at the security cameras. Got a dehumidifier down there to help with the humidity. The cameras are good enough that I can actually see whether the dehumidifier is running or whether it has stopped running because the reservoir filled up, which is nice. The pool camera, like I say, that comes in really handy. Also, the other security cameras around the yard, I'm able to keep track of my son when he's swinging on the swing, or if he's riding his bicycle or his skateboard type device around the yard. And also, if somebody were to attempt to either break into my RV or my car, it would record that motion. I do have it set up so that it will, when the hard drive fills up, it'll just go over the old files. But I've noticed that when the hard drive does fill up and it is recording over top of old files, that it still will send out an alert saying that the hard drive is full. So in order to keep that alert from happening, like when the recorder is rebooted, you get the beep and you get the message on the screen telling you the hard drive is full, or I have it set up so if there's any kind of errors or problems with the device, that my wife will get an email letting her know exactly what's going on. And in the past, we've gotten a lot of alerts saying the hard drive is full, so it's easier just to go in there, quick format the hard drive, get her going again. I have it set so that it only records motion. So it can be a little tricky because you've got a choice of 4 different areas, and you can set the sensitivity and the threshold settings to those different areas. And a lot of it has to do with how far away something is. Like in the basement, the settings they need to be set differently than the cameras that I have set up on the TV tower. The ones on the TV tower, the ones that are higher up the tower, seem to have to be set with a lower threshold and more sensitivity than the lower ones. And on the basement, it doesn't need to be set to an extremely high sensitivity or through low threshold either. So those are a little bit tricky to get used to and to get those set up just right, especially during the summertime when leaves are growing on the trees and you've got some wind, that movement will trigger it, and then you'll get some motion in the backyard and it'll start recording. And so you want to block out that areas. And if you've got a willow tree like I do, then it makes it even more difficult because those willow trees just keep growing and growing and growing, and you end up with the willow leaves that just stretch all the way down to the ground. You got to keep them trimmed up, like once a week, or just maybe block out that whole area where a willow is. And especially you get some wind in a willow tree, those are moving around constantly. The one other thing that I've noticed with these security cameras is that between day and night, you'll see some flickering going on, and it seems to be switching from a day mode to a day color mode to a night color mode for a little bit until the light gets too low, and then it switches to a black and white, a night black and white. And sometimes there's some flickering going on, there's some fading in and out. But usually this is only for just a couple of minutes. It's not a huge deal. I think it's just the camera trying to make the transition between the different modes. And I'm sure those could be addressed in the settings too to keep that from happening. I noticed that if there's any where you get the screen where it seems to get brighter and then darker and then brighter, like phasing in and out, I have rebooted the system and then that clears right up. There's no problem. Maybe about 6 or 7 or 8 times I've had the camera's display camera offline, and I have my suspicions on why that's happening. That may be happening because, like I said, if there's motion detected down the basement and my wife's at work, she can tunnel in and remotely live view the cameras that are going on. And this may be taking up an amount of bandwidth that the system doesn't like and causing the cameras to go offline. I'm not exactly sure about that. This tends to happen when the hard drive is close to being full. That seems to be more of when it happens. But over time, I think I'll be able to get a better idea of what may be causing that. I guess right now I'll show some video shots of maybe the protection that I have for the cameras, give you a view of the cameras the way they are now with the setup above the TV. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below in the comments area. I do get back to people as quickly as I possibly can. And if this helps you to decide which system to go with, that's why I've made these videos. I know that I had a difficult time trying to choose which system to go with. It was always a toss-up between money and how difficult it was to use or install. And I have to say, this system having PoE, power over Ethernet, only using one Cat5 cable, and the length of cable that you can use is very long, because I've got this shooting out from one side of the house to the other side of the house, and then up a 45 foot TV tower. And I'm over the 65. I'm probably about 85 feet from the receiver, and that Cat5 cable powers up the unit, keeps it powered up, those cameras, and I haven't had it. It's very easy install. I've been very happy with it. But again, after doing all the research on the different cameras, and you've got the megapixels, you got the 2K, the 4K, 3 megapixel, 4 megapixel, 2 megapixel, all different types of systems out there. After doing all the research, I noticed that there's not a lot of videos out there on YouTube, or there's a lot of documentation. You can go forever reading this stuff online, but as far as somebody demonstrating from the beginning to the end, there's not a lot out there. And that's the reason why I made these videos, to help anybody out there that wants to make that jump. Maybe they've got the old BNC connectors, they're using that old cables. I didn't want to have to deal with putting in electrical outlets wherever I wanted the cameras. I didn't want to run an electrical outlet to the top of the TV tower, which is really nice, because you just make sure that the connectors are well weatherproofed, weather resistant, to keep the rain water out of the connectors, because you definitely don't want those to short out. But as long as you do that, you can put these cameras anywhere. So yeah, if you have any comments or questions, anything that I might be able to help you out with, just ask them down below in the comments area. And keep an eye out in the future. I'll probably do one more video for the wintertime to kind of show you what temperature it is outside and how the cameras are working, and we'll go from there. Thank you for your time. Okay, so here we've got a quick little visual of how I've got everything set up. On the TV, I normally have to change the aspect ratio It does cut off a little bit on the edges, as you can see, but works relatively well. Like I said, I've got a monitor above my entertainment center. So let's say, for instance, I want to be able to keep an eye on my son while he's in the pool while watching TV. All I have to do is and sometimes clicking on these can be a little tricky, but there you can see I've got a view of the outdoor pool. And if I want to be on my laptop, I can do that if I want to watch YouTube videos. Or if we're watching TV, Alexa, turn on channel 12.1.
I couldn't find any enabled video skills. Go to the music video
Alexa,
section of the...
turn on TV 12.1.
Okay.
Is a tax attorney and Clayton's a CPA.
Okay. So as you can see, we can watch TV and still be able to keep track of what's going on in the yard with the monitor if we want to watch him in the pool. Alexa, turn on security cameras. So
Okay.
that is the setup. I'll show a quick view of the TV towers and how they're covered, and maybe show some footage of how I've got this wired. Okay, so as you can see, I've got my monitor above the TV, and I actually have my security system mounted and set up on top of my entertainment center, and I am using a USB mouse so that I can get into there. Just to give you a little look at the way I've got it, I just have the wires that go from the back down through a hole in the floor, and I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so my basement is a real mess. I'm sure everybody else's is too, so excuse the mess, but it's the way it is. So you can see in the center of your screen, I've got the wires for my TV coming up, the two black cables coming up from the TV. But if you look, you can see off to the corner 4 gray wires, Cat 5 wires coming down. And I just have them mounted up under. Through my rafters. And you can see all 4 of them going here. And eventually they come over, 3 of them come over to here, where I've just got a quick little disconnect. This is from the security camera system, and these are outdoor rated Cat 5 wires that end up going outside to the TV tower. And as you can see, I've got one of my security camera systems mounted up here under the basement so that it catches all the motion in the basement. Okay, again, I think I've done some video shots of the outdoors here, but if you can see my mount that I've designed and made, just mounts to the side, and it's got a little cover over top of it just in case we get any hail. The pull cam. It's hard to see, but yeah, and you just got to make sure you weatherproof. The end's really good. I may have to get back up there and double check those, make sure that those are all right. But I just have the wires zip tied all the way down until they go into the house. Okay, for this little clip I'm going to show you the menu system, just a quick tutorial or a brief summary of how it works. Of course you can switch between different camera views, control PTZ, autofocus, camera settings, info sequence, disable beep, search menu, control, device search, and main menu. In order to get in the main menu, you'll have to type in a password. So when I come to that point, I'll just block that out or skip ahead. But under the views, I've only got 4 cameras, so I'll go view, either single view for the cameras or view all 4 cameras. All you have to do is right click with your mouse to get that to come up. And if you want to zoom in, you just use your center mouse wheel and point it towards the camera that you want and zoom in and out. You can drag to show whatever view that you want to show on the camera. Okay, and then to get the main menu, you right click again, select main menu. I've already entered in the password earlier. You can set the settings so that it will remember that for a predetermined amount of time. I think I have mine set to 30 minutes. But you've got your search function where you can go in and either choose the camera and the time, and say for instance camera 1, double click it. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. The zoom feature isn't working on this, but you can zoom later on if you save it. That showed you that that was triggered by some rain that we had last night. And so yeah, you can select, like I said, the different camera views and the time. Sometimes being able to click, and you got to click quick enough, otherwise it doesn't want to work properly. You can change the sensitivity. There's some sensitivity settings in there. I've messed with them. It doesn't seem to help a whole lot. But if you right click several times, it'll bring you back to the first screen. You can go to backup, remote device, recording, channel name, change the name. Like I've got this one set up backyard 1, backyard 2. This one you can't read. I believe this is like backup 3, and then basement. Then you've got under info, you got your info, event, network, BPS, log. You've got your shutdown, and under settings you've got network, event, storage, and settings. I like to go to event. This is where you can set up some of the motion. You got your warnings. That'll send you an email, show you the message buzzer, send an email when there's all, or whichever particular one you want. Okay, and then under motion, you can select the camera that you want and set up. And you can set up the different areas. There's 4 different areas. You can set up separate sensitivity and threshold for each of the 4 different areas. You've got red, yellow, blue, and green. Under red, I've got sensitivity set like this. And a lot of times you have to determine how far away you are from the things that you want to trigger motion. Like in my basement, the sensitivity and the threshold don't have to be set quite aggressively as they do when you're cameras up on top of a TV tower a long distance from the things that might set it off, you'll want to make sure that the sensitivity is up there higher and the threshold is lower. So as we go down through the different settings, like yellow for my roof, I highly doubt anybody's going to be climbing on my roof, but you never know. And then in the blue areas that cover up like my fire pit and a tree in my backyard and a closed umbrella that the wind sometimes blows and sets off the motion. And then of course green, sensitivity 0, threshold 100, for the areas in my neighbor's yard that I don't want my neighbors triggering motion to record. I'm not interested in what my neighbors are doing. And so of course you've got the different cameras. Up here we've got all trees that tend to set it off, and then I only need these areas where people may walk to where it'll record. Of course you've got, again, red, yellow, blue, and green. And then you just set these up for each of the individual cameras. I've got the whole pool area set up like that, and of course you got yellow, and then blue, which I don't have blue set up on this one. But if I did, that's where it'd be, and then green. And then of course, my basement camera, I've just got this area that's not marked. I could have it marked as green, and it wouldn't trigger it, but anything that's not marked, generally, if there's any motion, which my sub pump hose is right here, and when it kicks on, this thing wiggles and tends to set things off. Everything else is going to be in the red. Like I said, I don't need to have the threshold set so low and the sensitivity set so high for this area, because anything sets it off. But there you go. There's a quick little tutorial on the menu system. That's how that works. And if you want to be able to back up a particular something that you saw, like if you're searching and somehow at night you happen to see somebody trying to break into your car or whatever, and you want to back this up, you would just go like find the time. If somebody's back breaking in, you just put a check mark there, and then you would just go to backup, see that it's in there. And I've already got an SDB1 USB disk. Now, one thing to remember is that you want to just delete files off of your thumb drive, because you don't want to format it. A lot of the computers will only format thumb drives to like a FAT32 or an NTSF or something like that. And these actually need to be formatted at, I believe, FAT32, not FAT64. A lot of newer computers won't do that. So you'll end up having to download a special program that will format it in a format that your recorder will be able to use. So whenever you pull files off of it, if you want to delete files, that's fine. Just don't format it. Format it once and forget it. But then all I have to do is hit back up, and it'll choose a folder to back it up in, and you just hit start, and it will start backing it up, and then you'll have a backup of that. So if there is more than one thing, I suppose you could hit remove. More than one thing that you wanted to back up, you just select all of the times where there was movement, and then of course hit back up. You can't see my whole screen because this receiver or this recorder, security recorder, doesn't display correctly on my TV set. But once you figure out where everything's at, it makes it a little bit easier, and then you know what to use. So there you go. That's a quick little tutorial, or whatever you want to call it, of the menu system. And like I said, sometimes, like if you click twice on one of the cameras that you want to see, you get this menu that'll pop up. I don't use this a lot. You'll end up having to right click to make it disappear, and try left clicking twice real quick to get it. And see, it didn't. So there. Sometimes do it multiple times. But then if I want to zoom in, of course, looks like I might want to clean the pool. But yeah, so there's the menu system. I hope that helps.